Hello, my name is Katie MacIntyre. I apologize for my voice. I'm suffering from allergies, but welcome to The Loving Cup, Elevate Your Gratitude. Today is Friday, May 18th, 2018, and we're live from the FingerLakes1.com studios in Seneca Falls, New York. So welcome. So to start us off today, I wanted to share a quote from Melanie Beatty, who shares, "Gratitude unlocks the fullness of life. It turns what we have into enough and more. It turns denial into acceptance, chaos to order, confusion to clarity. It can turn a meal into a feast, a house into a home, and a stranger into a friend." With that, I'd like to welcome my guest today, Susan Scheuerman from Scanning Atlas and Mike Nozzolio of Springport. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Katie. Springport I used to represent in the state senate, but I'm from Seneca Falls. Born here, raised here.
Mike Nozzolio of Seneca Falls.
And very pleased to be with you today. That was a wonderful quote. It's something that I think about every day in terms of just being grateful for everything that we have been blessed with. Certainly I've been blessed with many things, but we'll talk about those later. What I'd like to say, the thing I've been blessed with the most is being in a wonderful family. That my family has just been everything to me and so helpful to me. I wouldn't have accomplished anything without them. I'm with a very important member of my family that today, and I'm pleased to introduce my cousin, Susan Scheuerman. We don't talk of each other as cousins often, but I certainly am very proud of being her cousin, and I'm very pleased with her involvement in a lot of different projects, but most recently a project that will be in Seneca Falls. It is in Seneca Falls, but very helpful to our veterans, the former servicemen and women to our nation. Susan, it's great to be with you today, and congratulations on your great work.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you. And I'm pleased for Mike. And since then, Mike has been consistently elected to a position of office and a leadership role, and we sorely miss that now that he's retired and on to other things. But we are first cousins, and Mike's mother was my mother's older sister. And my mother actually, Rose Karmaniski and Anna Karmaniski, and they had a sister, Mary Karmaniski, and a brother, Joseph Karmaniski. And my mother was graduated from this school, from this building we're in now doing this podcast.
Wonderful.
Minders Academy, 1938, I think, was her graduation date. My mother was fifth in her class, which was quite an honor. My mother was well-read, well-spoken, worked outside the home in great positions, had her own checking account. I grew up with my parents, each sitting at a kitchen table, each paying certain bills every month. So I grew up with a terrific role model. My Aunt Anna, Mike's mom, was my other role model because she made a home. If you wanted a good meal, you went to my Aunt Anna's. There was no doubt about it. And when you went there, there was always a crowd, which was a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun growing up. Do you agree, Mike?
Yes,
yeah, we did. So it's wonderful to look back on all those times. And Mike and I have enough age difference, I being, of course, the older, so that we weren't in school at the same time, but we certainly shared a lot of the same experiences of growing up in this community. So
it's a special place. Seneca Falls is very special.
Very special, for sure.
And I've been honored to be a New York State legislator for 34 years. But Susan's right that her mom got me involved in politics, believe it or not. That she herself wasn't involved, but she knew that I wanted to be involved. And Aunt Rose, when I was a sophomore at Cornell, called me up one day and said that the local congressman, whose district stretched from Syracuse to Rochester, was going to be hiring summer interns, and would I be interested? And I said yes, and she said, well, the application is due tomorrow. And if you'd like me to help you fill it out, then, because I was in Ithaca away at school, she took care of the paperwork, and Aunt Rose made sure that the application was put in time, and that I was chosen over about 40 other people that were interviewing for the position to be an intern in a congressional office. And that had a great change in my career path, a great impact on my career path. I never thought I'd be an elected official, but I did want to be involved in policy. And it was Aunt Rose who helped me. Fast forward 10 years. It was, as Susan mentioned, my cousin Mark, who was my first campaign manager to the state assembly. More importantly, or certainly as importantly, was the great help I received from all my family. But Uncle Abe, Susan's father, took a special interest. He was semi-retired at the time. He had some time on his hands, and he did everything from help us with petitions to getting up signs to helping us with our headquarters operations to introducing me to people that I didn't know but certainly should know. And so that in terms of gratitude, that no person is what they are by themselves. They're about their family, about who has stepped up during their lives to be involved, to be role models. As Susan indicated, that we had some very, very good role models living. And our third aunt, or the third sister, was also a very important role model for us. That Aunt Rose was working out of the home, out of her home into the office environments. My mother worked in factories, and she worked in a 3:30 to midnight shift. And as you see the three sisters on the screen, the lady on the left is our Aunt Mary, Susan and my Aunt Mary, who we love dearly. She didn't have any children, but we were all her kids. Mm-hmm. And that Aunt Mary worked at Gould's Pumps. And I'll never forget Aunt Mary telling me that she was very proud of the fact she worked for the largest pump manufacturer in the world, right here in Seneca Falls.
Wonderful.
As a young child, that had an impact on certainly my thinking. But we were very pleased and blessed. And I remain grateful every day for those experiences that were so helpful. I have an office across the canal. It was an office we set up. The former Westcott Rule factory was in transition, and they were thinking about tearing down a beautiful structure on East Baird Street. But Phil Westcott, the owner of the company, and I talked, and he sold the building to me while I was in the state legislature. And that needed a tremendous amount of work. It was the first time I walked through the building, I fell through the floor. It was that bad a structure. But Uncle Abe and Susan's Uncle Vic, who was one of the best carpenters ever in this region. Mm-hmm. They helped me in terms of the renovation, and that the bookshelves that your Uncle Vic made, and our Uncle Vic was such a great carpenter. They're one of the best bookshelves I've ever seen. They bear the weight of the United States Code, the New York State statutes, and they've been there for almost 40 years, and they haven't bent a bit. They're in effect the best bookshelves ever. But that's the kind of connections that we're so fortunate to have in our communities, to have our family so close to us, and that we're very grateful for those experiences.
Beautiful. So let's jump in and answer a few questions together. So if you can share with me something that you're most grateful for from the past year.
Well, from the past year, I'm glad to be alive. I'll tell you that. I've had, a few years ago, I had a fairly serious health issue, and that seems to be at bay. So I'm, first of all, very grateful for my health. I'm grateful that all of my children are healthy, employed, and doing well. I feel very blessed to live in this country. I did not have to get up and go find water today. Mm-hmm. We take so many things for granted living here. But maybe it is a product of aging, I don't know. But every day I do feel very grateful and look up even now, which I didn't before, and say thanks a lot. I don't know why, but thanks a lot for everything that you've given me. So, yeah, very blessed, feel very blessed.
Yeah. Likewise, every day I wake up very happy. I decided to leave public service because I had a heart condition. My younger brother, our my brother, Susan's cousin, was stricken with a heart problem and died very suddenly a decade ago. And I had to, that was a signal to me to monitor my own health. I needed 3 new heart procedures, heart valves. I have an artificial heart valve in myself now, and I'm very pleased to have one. I'm very pleased to be alive, very pleased to have health and enjoy that health. I don't believe I'm overstating this at all. I think certainly being grateful for living here in this wonderful community, growing up here. Our grandfather came to this country from another area of the world. That you mentioned Gould's Pumps earlier. He came to work at Gould's and was a machinist, a skilled worker. He spoke 7 languages. Wow. Was an interpreter for much of the Eastern European community that settled in our region, speaking those languages, being able to translate from we were so blessed to have. I want to say something about Susan's son, who himself was a decorated Air Force veteran, and rose to the rank of colonel, and is been in a number of theaters of conflict through his career, and that what a fine gentleman Reese has grown to be, and more than a gentleman. He's a genuine patriot and American hero to have that type of service. And I know Uncle Abe and Aunt Rose would be very, very proud. We're very proud of him and are continued, I'm sure, to be very happy with all of Reese's involvement for our military. One person that would really be happy, and you know who that is, Uncle Joe.
Oh, yeah.
He would think that would be something that he would be cherished at the American Legion every day. He'd be talking about that. He did.
Yeah.
So those things are things that we should never take for granted, and that.
And I will say that Mike has been very generous to my children, a son Reese, a daughter Glynis, and at different times in their career development, Michael has aided them in either references or phone calls or things that have helped them move along. But on a personal level, we have an adopted daughter, Rose, who is 23. I guess she's the heart of our family. She's in her last year at the Culinary Institute in Hyde Park, and just took her practicum exam yesterday, waiting for the results. She has some challenges, but she loves to eat, so the best way to learn how to cook is to go to the best. So she did, and she'll be graduating in July. And Michael, when Rose was in public school in Auburn and at West Middle School, Michael came and spoke in an assembly for Rose's class and noted her in the class, of course, which no kid wants to be noted by anybody when they're in 7th grade. But it was a nice thing for Mike to do, to come to the school. So Mike's been very generous to our children and our family, everyone in our family, not just my children, but all of us. And he's a true public servant. Michael is. I've kind of jumped in here later in life. I had other things occupying my time, but Mike has devoted his life to public service, which is remarkable, I think.
I don't want to interrupt, but I do want to say something about Rose. I forgot. I should have mentioned her. Of course, Glynis, too, but Rose, what a sweetheart. This girl that Susan adopted, brought into her home, gave her all the love an adopted child could possibly have, any child could possibly have. That and she's such a positive person.
Always.
And she is so grateful. So she loves to eat. So do we. We all do.
We all
too
do.
much. But I look forward to seeing Rose and enjoy her career as in whatever she pursues. The CIA, the Culinary Institute of America, is one of the best schools in the country, if not the world.
Absolutely. You're going to have some great meals ahead.
I'll tell you, it's much more. She tells me that I don't really have the correct tools for cooking. Of course, I've only been cooking about almost 60 years, but that's okay, And I said, that's okay, Rose. I managed to get a meal on the table. But she's, it's good to have those skills, on a professional level.
Sure.
So that's good.
And I can imagine what our mothers would have thought of that.
Yeah.
My mother would have just
particularly your
world,
mother.
Oh,
yeah.
Well,
and Anna would
both
have.
of them would have loved that. I'm sure.
Mike's mother and mine too could put together a meal at the drop of a hat. I'm not kidding. Open up the cupboard and here's this 10-course meal, and there was always something good on the stove at his house, always. And Mike's dad, Albert, my Uncle Al, he really was such a sweet man, and I mean a sweet man. He used to call me Choo Choo. And if he didn't call me Choo Choo, I'd think, something's wrong with him. But he was probably the kindest man in our family, no doubt about it. And he always was very appreciative of a meal or people showing up, or he just had this genuine knowledge of this is what's important in life. You're all here, and this is what I need, and thank you for showing up. Even as a kid, I sensed that about him. So
beautiful.
It's always touching to me to think back on Mike's house. Even sometimes when things weren't going so well at my own house, I'd always go across the bridge and up a block, and I'd be over at an aunt and uncle's house, and that did mean a lot. That did mean a lot to me. So anyway,
I might want to have a meal at Aunt Anna's house. That sounds delicious.
It was wonderful.
That's good.
Wonderful, yeah.
So thinking about your life, is there something that you're grateful for now that at the time you were not grateful for?
Probably everything. I think that when you're growing up, you're charging away, and you sometimes don't pause to understand how wonderful things are.
Sure.
I know our grandmother, our shared grandmother, who Susan was named after. I think my mother always had a special feeling for my cousin Susan because of that connection, Susan to Susan.
And she used to give me home permanents in the kitchen, so I think that was the connection.
They're full service.
Yes,
full service. But our grandmother died at a very young age. She was only 59 when she passed.
Right.
And it I was 8 and just getting to know her. And that was... I know there's thousands of stories I would have asked her to relate about our grandfather, about him coming to America, about her. She was from a Slavic home as well, but in eastern Pennsylvania or central Pennsylvania, and she experienced a lot of trials and tribulations in her life. I would have loved to know about her. She was a worker. She was a very independent woman herself. She always drove her own car, her own
1939 Chevrolet,
which was a neat car. I wish we had that car. She saved that one. But that certainly was a point that too many families lose that wonderful heritage and history. Certainly we were blessed with having a very diverse ethnic background, but it would have been great to have more of her time.
Yeah, I will say that just to recount in thinking about doing this today and just recounting some of the memories, and my parents were so thrilled with Mike's election success, and they all went up to Albany for his first, remember? Was it a bus they got on? They rented a bus and went up to Albany for Mike swearing in to the assembly, And my father was not a guy to profess a great, he wasn't a demonstrative man in telling you that he loved you every day, but boy, you knew it. And he couldn't get a smile off his face for this event for Mike. And Mike, when my father was ill, very ill, and it was right after 9/11, and Mike came to the house. Mike was busy because he was chair of the crime. What was the that you were chair of for the Senate, the crime victim unit, and so Mike was very busy after 9/11, obviously with everything that he had to do, and he took the time to come to the house to see my dad, which I cannot tell you what that meant to my dad. Just it was wonderful.
The nice thing about Susan's dad, I'll never forget when we were talking when your mother was up at the nursing home. He said, "You got to get over to see your aunt." That's all I needed to hear. We set up a meeting at a time, and I brought. In the days when you had the laptops just came out.
They were big.
They were big. I brought the laptop and I had on, I scanned in every other family photo I could find.
Beautiful.
That I had from my aunt and from
I remember when
Mary,
you did
who
that,
had passed away, my mom, who had passed away. And I brought all the family photos and we spent literally 3 hours going through all the photos. And Aunt Rose had a stroke, so her speech was limited. But could tell the joy by her tears. She, when you see something on a screen like a photo and what memories that connotes, and I didn't want to go and just talk or even, and she had trouble speaking, so that was probably one of the wisest things I ever did was bring those photos.
It was lovely.
And on the screen to see.
Because that's the language that you could share.
Absolutely.
Beautiful.
The shared experiences. We've got a great shot of a Thanksgiving. Remember that Thanksgiving picture? You've seen it many times. It's a Thanksgiving picture that's on our front porch, or on our back porch, which was enclosed. Yes. And our grandmother was there. It was one of the last times she was there.
I do remember that.
And we were all kids, and we were all trying to be our best behavior. But it was just seeing my Aunt Rose seeing that. It's just an experience that I share this with those that may be listening to us today. Utilize those memories to share with your family, and share them again and again and again. Even after you think they don't want to have them shared anymore, particularly those that are more elderly, more infirmed. This is a gift of happiness that's continues.
It's very good advice.
That's very good.
And I think one thing I'm hearing from both of you is just the importance of taking time to show up and giving time, because that's such a precious thing. We all are fighting all the time because we're so busy and we have so many things to do. And taking time and giving your time to somebody else, whether it's your family or the causes that you are working for, that's so important. There's not much more a greater gift than your time.
Yeah. Well, we are blessed, that's for sure, that we've recognized. I had somebody say to me a long time ago, if you're remembered 6 months after you leave this earth, you're lucky. If you're remembered beyond that, you're truly blessed. Because really, to have these memories to share after our parents are long gone now, and to recount them, obviously that impact that they've made on us and our values, who we are, what we do, why we do it, has stuck. At the time, you don't think it, but boy, you sure do recognize it now, and it's a good thing. It's all a good thing. So this has been nice.
It's one of my favorite quotes is that memory is the most important form of honor. That we honor those who we remember, and that is what Susan just indicated, and I certainly share that's memory is the way we honor all those that helped us and those that are dear to us.
So is there, speaking of memories, is there a shared memory for the two of you, something that is just something you'll never forget? It sounds like there's many. I mean, meals and
to try to take one is very difficult. But
we had opportunities to be together. I guess, sometimes they come in odd ways. We've been at funerals for each other's parents. I remember when my dad passed away, and there wasn't much ceremony, let's put it that way. But I remember Mike coming forward at the funeral home and asking each of the siblings of us, what one thing do you remember about your dad? And I can't tell you how that poignant question, at the time he said it, was just, boy, I wanted to. I didn't
cry.
It did. Because you're so caught up, you're so close to the loss that you don't stop and think. But Michael posed that to us, and it was beautiful. It was a beautiful thing he did, and I remember that.
I remember when your dad took us. Used to rent a cottage on the east shore of Cuba Lake, and I remember somebody cut their foot one day. I remember that as being a thing that it was a crisis of, you'd have those, how families are.
Sure.
You're having fun and something happens, not that significant, hopefully, and it just kind of sticks in your mind. There are so many things.
I do have a memory, though, that I just am recounting now. In 1975, I think it was, I went through a kind of a personal crisis in my life. And I was spending a lot of time at my parents' house. And one Saturday night, my mother said, Did you bring a dress to wear today? And I said, for what? She said, well, Mike and Rosemary is Mike's wife, are going to pick you up. You're going down to Eisenhower College to see a play. And I think that was the first time I recognized that I could go out on my own, and see something and have fun, because I hadn't been having much fun that summer. And they just showed up and said, yep, ready to go. And we went down to see, I don't remember what we saw at Eisenhower College, but it was.
Do you remember your dress?
Kind of. I had lost a lot.
It was a very unforgettable.
What was it?
Right, but
that was in it. But it was very very unforgettable.
Their gesture of including me just meant so much to me.
One of the things I was always admired of many things of my mother was she really took a keen interest in your children.
Yes, she did.
And obviously, Reese and Glynis.
Right.
That was always something that, and our aunt, my aunt, Susan's mother, her aunt, always, whether it was a birthday in particular, always recognized our birthdays.
Always, yeah.
Every birthday. And it was a little, whether it was $1 or $3 or whatever, it was always something that they just made it a point. That was something that there was.
Looked out for each other.
Now, I don't know about your mother. My mother said, whatever money you get from your birthday goes in the bank immediately. And it goes towards your fund.
But his mother used to call him when he was in college. I don't know if you remember this. Used to call him Mr. Cash.
Because I used to write checks for cash. I had 3 jobs. I worked, had my own business.
Hard.
He did.
That was another thing. We always worked on each other's, but whenever, it was kids growing up. Well, we need somebody to shovel when your dad put in the swimming pool, that I remember it was the slave labor of the cousins would
dug the hole.
Right.
Well, we didn't shovel the whole thing, to be fair, but around.
So you could reap the benefits.
Yeah. Susan's dad was the entrepreneur in the family, businessman, small businessman, set up his own. Had, for many years, worked for a major corporation, insurance company, but then set up his own realty company here in Seneca Falls. And he was a businessman, and he had that entrepreneurial spirit. That helped me in politics. It really did. He understood the dynamics of entrepreneurship. I always respected it, and he was always very far thinking. But running a small business was not an easy task. But he in starting it from scratch, he had to be in his 50s when he did that.
I'm sure he was. Yeah.
And that what a great thing, and something I always say.
That's awesome. So I know you mentioned that you're grateful for a lot of things and you celebrate gratitude each day. So can you talk to me a little bit about how you celebrate gratitude, or if you have a gratitude practice, or there's something that you do each day?
Well, I pray to Mary. I thank Mary. I just say, hey, thanks. Thanks for another great day, and I know you're busy, but if you could help me out with this. I always preface that because I realize that she probably is pretty busy. That or St. Anthony. St. Anthony's another go-to saint for me, and I'm just very grateful, and it seems like you have to acknowledge that. I don't always speak it out loud, but in my mind I acknowledge it. So yeah, that's what I do.
Well stated. I think that I try to express my gratitude in trying to help others. My gratitude for who has helped me, and my particular my family has helped me. All those items I mentioned. We thank by trying to remember that others down the line need your help. I don't have children, but I hope that I've helped inspire and direct a number along the way through the jobs that I've had in the public service I've been involved with.
Definitely.
Yeah, you have, for sure.
That's beautiful. So this does bring it to the end of our time. It went so quickly today, and I loved hearing all of the stories about your family and your connection in Seneca Falls. So thank you for tuning in. Thank you, Susan and Mike, for joining us here today at FingerLakes1.com studios. We'll be back in June with more guests. Until then, share your gratitude and be well.